Bill, we'll start with Big 12, then we'll get into the SEC. So Mike Gundy was talking about kind of the power struggle with long-term money, and he feels like the Big 12 is better off today than it is this time last year. I know that's kind of when the news broke about Texas and Oklahoma. What are your thoughts on where that conference currently is and what the future looks like for that league?
Well, I mean, obviously Brett Yormark was on the podium yesterday talking about how football's open. I think it's tough when you lose your two biggest brands to the SEC, and they're going to face an uphill challenge. But, I mean, like they said, the opportunity is there for that conference to keep going. Possible Pac-12 merger on the table, those kind of things. I don't think by any stretch the Big 12 is dead. They're going to have work to do.
Between them and the Pac-12 and the ACC, and I know there's been rumors and rumblings about certain schools within the Atlantic Coast Conference, but nothing has happened to this point. Which conference are you most confident in succeeding in the future years?
I mean, the SEC and the Big Ten, they're both set up for success. They've got most of the power. If there's another piece of realignment, I mean, I think it's Notre Dame, and they, maybe go to the Big Ten from there. But, I mean, both are at 16, both have a ton of money, both have TV interests, both have multi-sport interests. It's not just football, even if football's the biggest piece. I mean, you could do the entire College World Series out of the SEC right now, or most of it anyway. And then the Big Ten is a really good basketball conference on top of everything else. So I think both of those conferences hold most of the power, and the SEC is winning more championships, but it's not like the Big Ten isn't a powerful revenue conference.
Yeah, and it's where a lot of people live in their footprint, across the country. And you bring up basketball in Big Ten. We look at all this conference realignment from the football lens, and that's the season we're headed into next. But how do you think this shapes the landscape of men's college basketball? And you mentioned college baseball there with the College World Series. What effect does these changes and the ripples that are going to come from it have on the sports that aren't football?
I don't think, like people were tweeting last week, well, Rutgers has got to go all the way out to USC for a volleyball match. Well, they've got a ton of money to do it. I mean, I never saw so many people more concerned about Rutgers' travel itinerary than I did a couple weeks ago. I mean, these schools are going to have the money to do it. And I think if the Big Ten were to add in the future and grab a couple more West Coast partners, it's not going to be as bad as people think. It's about money, it's about football, it's about TV. And, for USC and UCLA, quite frankly, it's a no-brainer, given what they're going to make in the Pac-12 versus what they would make under the proposed, TV deal that's coming with the Big Ten. I mean, why wouldn't you do that?
Yeah. So I think the term Power 5 is dead. Is it going to become Power 3 or Power 4 a few years from now?
That's the question, are we going to have two super conferences and it just kind of be the SEC and the Big Ten? Are we going to have three and the ACC hang on and maybe somehow add Notre Dame or, and four? And I think it kind of circles back to what we were talking about with the Big 12 and the Pac-12 is if they merge, then you have four, and it's kind of a reshuffled Power 5, probably 68 or so schools that can entertain playing for the national championship. And I think until all of that lines up, they're not going to expand the playoff. I mean, they're not going to have a format to do it because they could expand the playoff, and then they're going to have to do it all over again if there's a bunch more realignment moves.
We're talking with Bill Bender this morning, Sporting News. Bill, to me, I'm looking at way out in front. You were talking about the College World Series being SEC chalky. I just can't see a scenario where we don't have Georgia, Alabama, and Ohio State in the league. I'm just kind of waiting on Oklahoma, USC, and some others to meet them this upcoming season. Are you of the belief, as we're 51 days out from Arkansas football, and I guess that makes it 44 days out from college football, that this is going to be a chalky year ahead for the college football playoff?
Oh, it always is. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Like, if we go to a super conference model and people are complaining, yeah, what are you complaining about? We've watched the same playoff for the last 8 years, and we're going to watch it again this year. It's hard to say that anybody other than Alabama, Georgia, Ohio State, and maybe Clemson could win the national title. I mean, if you're making a case for somebody else, you're stretching because of those schools and the power and the number of All-Americans they have and the depth of recruiting. So I think an expanded playoff with super conferences would make for a better regular season. You'd lose some of the region. And that's the other one. People say you lose the regional part of the sport. Well, college football is very regional right now, and only one region of the country is dominating.
So let's go up to your region, up there in Ohio with the Buckeyes. You lose Garrett Wilson, you lose Chris Olave, but there's still Jackson Smith Najigma. You still got C.J. Stroud, who I think is going to end up winning the Heisman Trophy this year. Good defense, TreVeyon Henderson, good running back. Is Ohio State, you think, the team to beat in the Big Ten, and can anyone challenge them up there?
I mean, yeah, they're going to be the team to beat. They're going to be loaded on offense, obviously, with Stroud and Henderson and Jigba and Marvin Harrison, and the list goes on of how many playmakers they have. The defense should be better. Bringing in Jim Knowles from Oklahoma State, going to be more aggressive, a safety-based defense. I think they'll be better against the run. I mean, if anybody's going to challenge them, it'll be Michigan or Michigan State. I think both of those teams, Michigan State got slaughtered by Ohio State last year, but they get them in East Lansing. And Michigan, for all the drama that gets written about Jim Harbaugh seemingly every offseason, I mean, they won the game last year. They got to the playoff, and they've got a lot of talent coming back on that roster as well.
Bill, and you'll go back to something we were talking about a minute ago in this conference expansion, and I've asked some other guests we've had recently about the idea that you may play one collection or group of teams. We call them conferences now in football, but with the volleyball and the non-football sports, you may play with something more regionally or geographically based. Do you think that's something that will get brought up and would have some traction down the road, that football would kind of have its own alignment compared to the other sports?
It might. I mean, that gets talked about by some of the power brokers. They may separate and do their own thing. But I think, like I said, in the short term, the travel costs aren't a big deal because of the TV money being made. Now, if they, down the line, football says we're going to do our own thing and align with the playoff and unionize with NIL and all the things that are going on because of the disparity of money it makes, I mean, that may happen down the line. But I think it's going to be a while, just because you're asking these conferences like the SEC and the Big Ten and the Big 12 to give up a lot of power by doing that, and I don't think they're going to do that like easily. It would be the word I would use.
I think we were talking about this yesterday. Maybe the most unlikely scenario on the board for any of this would be one of the existing members of the SEC or the Big Ten to move to another league right now. That'd be unfathomable that even a school that's not competitive in one of these leagues, one of the bottom feeders, would look for another home in another league right now.
Yeah, I mean, and I don't know that that'll happen either, because once you're in these leagues, you're getting that money. Vanderbilt's getting that money. Missouri's getting that money. Rutgers and Maryland are getting that money. So they're not going to – and you don't kick teams out of leagues. So – and that's going to cause some angst among those, that if we do go to super conferences and some schools get left out. But, I mean, when Missouri came into the SEC, people complained, and then they went to back-to-back SEC championship games. So it's not like it can't be done.
Bill Bender with us here on the Morning Rush Sporting News. Bill, let's talk more SEC. I want to get your vantage point on the Arkansas Razorbacks, kind of a bird's eye view. Arkansas this upcoming season's got a lot of quality pieces coming back. Brutal schedule ahead, but you do get Bama, Ole Miss, LSU, and some other really good teams at home. Just kind of what your thoughts are on what Sam Pittman has done in Fayetteville the last 2 years as they enter year 3.
I mean, yeah, it's been a remarkable turnaround from what he inherited and where the program was versus where it is. It's been really good. And I think with K.J. Jefferson at quarterback, some of the weapons around him, got a good secondary. This was a team that played Alabama shot for shot into the second half last year with that offense. So it is a tough schedule. And if they got to 9 wins, that'd be really an accomplishment. But, I mean, they are one of those SEC West sleepers. Do I think they're going to beat Alabama? Probably not. but they could challenge them on the field for 4 quarters like they did last year.
And Arkansas, like Tennessee, has not beaten Alabama since 2006. I think that's a game that Arkansas and Tennessee fans want desperately. When you look at Alabama's schedule this year, Bryce Young has to go to Texas, to Austin, to Knoxville, to Fayetteville, to Baton Rouge, and to Oxford. Those are some difficult places today to play. Do you see Alabama going unscathed this year into the SEC championship, or do you think they drop one potentially before they possibly play Georgia?
I mean, that's the standard they play at. They could easily lose one, given all those road tests you mentioned. It's not an easy schedule, but they're built for it. I mean, if you look at NFL big boards, they've got like 10 guys from Alabama in the top 50. Our All-American team's coming out soon, and our preseason All-American team, I think we have 5 first-teamers from Alabama. And they're not like debates. You know, you don't debate Will Anderson for very long. Like, yeah, he's first-teamer. And so the roster's loaded. They're built for that. And, yeah, they may trip up somewhere on the line. It's hard to go 12-0 every year. So, but I still think they're the odds-on favorite to win the SEC again.
Bill, we'll leave it there. We appreciate your insight this morning. Bill Bender, Sporting News, not only a college football writer, but does a lot of stuff for them. Bill, enjoy your college football season ahead. Can't wait, as we're a little less than 50 days out from it actually beginning.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me on, guys. Let's talk again soon.
All right, good stuff from Bill Bender, talking all things, not just SEC football, but college football this morning.
Partners at BetOnline continue to be the #1 source for all your betting needs and sports info. Find all the latest odds, news, and sports developments, including this year's Wimbledon Finals, Major League Baseball, the latest fighting news, and even next season's early NFL futures. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today to receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use our promo code BLEAV. That's BLEAV to get the bonus and get into the action. Bet online, where the game starts.